Welcome to the Aggressive Optimism Podcast with me, Jenna Edwards. We're coming to the end of our solo episodes before we start talking with people about their big, audacious goals. And today I want to talk to you about a concept I like to call walking statistic. So yesterday I talked about dreaming safe and about how my early ambition was built around stability. And after I stopped recording, I kept thinking, I didn't give you enough context, right? Because dreaming safe doesn't just come out of nowhere. We don't randomly decide to cap ourselves. There's usually a reason, right? And for me, it was pretty simple. On paper, I was a walking statistic. Not in a dramatic way, just the facts, right? I was born premature, teenage parents. We didn't grow up with a lot below the poverty line. Addiction and instability were normal in my world, right? I grew up in a small town. Now, the thing is, this is not a sob story, right? It's just context. And context matters because when you grow up in an environment where the odds aren't exactly stacked in your favor, you feel that. Even if no one says it directly, you feel the lower expectations. You feel the surprise when you do well. You feel that subtle ceiling. And so when I say that my early dream was about stability, that wasn't random. That was strategic. Because when you grow up around chaos, stability feels like the finish line. So of course I built a safe dream. Safe felt victorious. Safe felt like beating the statistics. And for a while, it was. But here's the part that shifted. I wasn't trying to deny reality. I knew where I came from. I knew what the numbers said. I knew what usually happens in stories that start like mine. What I refused was the inevitability. And that's different, right? Reality says this is your starting point. Inevitability says, and this is how it ends. I never agreed with that ending. I wasn't loud about that disagreement. Well, sometimes I was. I was definitely not dramatic about that disagreement. I just quietly made choices that allowed me to shift away from that inevitability. Thailand, Japan, moving to Los Angeles, building a network, outgrowing my safe dreams. None of those were rebellions. They were refusals. Refusals to let statistically likely turn into a personal guarantee. And I think sometimes we confuse realism with resignation. We say, well, that's just how it goes. Or people like me don't fill in the blank, right? And maybe the numbers support that. Maybe the data supports that. But data is not destiny, y'all. It's just information. And information doesn't get to make decisions for you. You do. That's the difference. I've never been anti-reality, which is why people calling me Pollyanna or saying I look at the world through rose-colored glasses has always bothered me because I really do see the quote reality. I'm not delusional. I understand context. I understand systems. I understand that starting lines are not equal, but I am anti-inevitability. I'm anti-deciding the ending before I get there. And here's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. When you grow up feeling like you're starting from behind, you develop this quiet muscle. It's not loud, it's not flashy, it's just freaking stubborn, right? And that stubbornness can either make you defensive or it can make you expansive. At first, mine was defensive. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I was not a happy-go-lucky child. I was definitely digging into that grit, right? It was very be stable, be respectful, don't mess this up. But then over time, it became expansive, that stubbornness to look at what's possible. What else can I try? What else can I build? And that shift from defensive ambition to expansive ambition, that's everything, y'all. That's aggressive optimism. Because if I had stopped at, quote, I beat the statistic, I would have stayed safe. But I didn't just want to beat it. I wanted to build beyond it. And that required something different. Not proving people wrong, not outrunning a narrative, choosing forward motion over and over again, even when it was inconvenient, even when it was uncomfortable, even when it made no statistical sense. And that's really what these solo episodes have been about. It's not luck. It's not perfect planning. It's not secret access. It's just a pattern that I decided to do, a decision to be curious, to contribute, a decision to explore expansion. That's it. And starting Monday, we're shifting into conversations every week because I don't want this to be Jenna's version of the anti-inevitability podcast. I want you to hear 100, 1,000 versions of how you might be able to do this too. Because I believe there's a million ways to do anything, a million paths to a big audacious goal. And the more stories we hear, the harder it becomes to believe your starting point locked in your ending. Because once you see enough examples, inevitability starts to look a lot weaker. So if you've ever looked at your circumstances and thought, well, this is probably how it goes, I just want to gently push back. And by gently, I mean really push back, y'all. Because your starting point is just context. It's not prophecy. Reality is just data, right? It is not destiny. And optimism just might be the refusal to let inevitability run the show. Okay? So if this resonated with you, follow the show, leave a review, come back on Monday because the conversations start then. And I think you're going to hear pieces of yourself in a lot of these different stories. So until next time, go be realistic. And by realistic, I mean optimistic. Let's do this. Okay, bye.